Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today I'm going to show you how I made this knife sharpening jig. And I made it adjustable for different angles, sharpening different angles. I know not everybody has a belt grinder like mine, probably no one does since I made this one myself, but hopefully you'll get some ideas on how to make one for yours. Thanks for watching, and stick around, I'll show you how I made it.
I grabbed this piece of steel out of just my scrap pile, but it's a chunk of a piece of 4-inch tubing that I had mitered for a project, and I just had laying around. So I'm just cutting it down for this knife sharpening project. You see, there's a little rib on the inside of the tubing there. I'm going to grind that down and smooth over the corners and make it a little easier to handle. A lot of times when I'll sharpening knives, I won't have gloves. It'll be barehanded. If I'm sharpening on the grinder, or I also got this power strop attachment for my bench grinder. I'll do that barehand so I can check the temperature of the metal, make sure I'm not gonna get it too hot. So I'll get that smoothed out, and now what I'm doing here is figuring out where I need to have the pivot. I'll kind of doing a little checking and looking, and figure this about where it needs to be. Taking over to the bench, and I had already marked it, so now I'm gonna center punch, and then the next step is to drill my hole. I like these little snap center punches. Uh, I forget where I got these from, but they're sure handy to have. And then I do have a drill press, but this hole doesn't need to be all that straight. It just needs to be able to pivot on it on a 5/16 bolt. Um, so knock down some of the rough edges left from the drill bit, and then what I'm doing now is I'm going to take the work table off my grinder and take the platen off and just disassemble it so I can. My plan is to drill and tap a couple holes. Um, that'll so I won't have to take the bolts on and off because my platen's in the way for putting this attachment that I want to make. But it's spaced out from the frame with like a little stack of washers. It's probably 5/16 of an inch or so from this flat piece here that I'm about to drill. So same thing here. I figured out where I want that pivot, and then I'm just gonna drill it out. There was a couple of different drill bits. I start pretty small and work my way up, and then this. I don't even think this is the last one before I tap the hole. No, I got this last one here. Um, and then I'm going to be tapping it out for 5/16. Most of the hardware that I have on my grinder are 5/16. I don't really have a reason for that. That just seems to work. And so here I'm chucking up the 5/16 tap in my drill, and I'm using the clutch on it so I don't snap that tap. Although I've never snapped a tap, I could see how it'd be pretty easy to snap one doing this method. Um, this this steel on the grinder is not very thick. I don't do this on thicker steel, but on thin stuff like this is like how I like to tap out the holes. So that 5/16 bolt didn't fit, and this one doesn't either. So I'm like, what's going on here? I check another bolt hole if it's fine. This is about the time I realized that I tapped this for 5/16 fine thread instead of coarse. So yeah, double check, and sure enough, I used the wrong tap. so So off to the store I go. I didn't have a couple of 5/16 fine thread. This is the next day. Here I got a couple of bolts. You can see I put a little bit of a thread locker on here. I don't want that backing out. I want to be able to just slip this on, slip the nut on, and be able to sharpen, leave that stud attached, if you will. So now what I did is I want this thing to be adjustable from about 15 to 30 degrees. That's typically the range that I do my micro bevels. So I set it at one end of that range, and then get a transfer punch and punch it out, and then this is the other end of that range, and I'll do the same thing. Get the same transfer punch and punch another hole. Uh, and if you don't know what a transfer punch is, it's just a punch that fits the idea of your hole fairly snugly, but it'll put just a like a center punch within that for you. It kind of does the work instead of having to guess where the center of your hole is. It does it automatically. So now I put the other stud in, and now I'm just reassembling my platen here, and then I'm gonna make sure these are lined up. The platen's lined up with my idler wheels here, and then I'm gonna put this back on my grinder. Once I get that on, I'll next thing to do is just put the belt on. And then I can finish center punching and drilling out these holes that I had used the transfer punch to mark. And then drilling out the holes. I did the pilot with 1/8, and then I did another one. The next size up was a 5/16, and then I think I did one or two steps up above that, whatever that is in my index. I'm not sure what size that is, but so loosely go over a 5/16, and then I got a carbide burr for my angle grinder, and I'm just kind of smoothing out the transition between the holes that I drilled and making it a little bit wider. And then I had already done one test fit and did a little more shaping, and then I'm pretty confident it's going to fit here. So I'm just going to back off the nuts here, and then put my little sharpening jig on the grinder and give her a test. Put it on and pivot it a few times. Looked like it might work, um, but not quite enough. Not quite enough pivot. So there's no reason to have this corner on here. So we're just going to round this off, and then take a little bit off of that. The front of that jig, so it'll pivot a little bit further into where the belt is. So we're not taking that corner off, and then just taking, I didn't measure, but I guess about an 1/8 inch, maybe a little more than an 1/8 inch off the front of the I'm not sure what you call it, the jig, the tool rest, sharpening table, table rest. Anyway, um, just trimming a little bit, and then once I get this trimmed up, I'll grind a little bit of relief with the belt grinder too, which is what I'm about to do here. You know, the GoPro is on my. I got a GoPro on my head when I'm filming this, and I had no idea how close that was to that belt. Sticks off my head a little bit, but kind of a cool shot. Um, so then I put it back on, and it seems like it's got a little, maybe it's got enough now. I think I wanted this adjustable from about 15 degrees to 30 degrees. Um, Although I don't ever grind my micro bevels that that in that range. Typically it's either 20 or 25 degrees for me. If it's a hunting or camping knife, I'll typically do my micro bevel at 25 degrees, and if it's a kitchen knife, I'll typically do the micro bevel at 20 degrees. Um, so in this, it went up to 27, which I think is going to be fine for my use. I can always grind more off if I need to later on. But so you can see I set the jig to 20 degrees, and that's how I plan to do it. Is I got that little digital gauge, and then you just set your knife on this rest, and it allows you to get a consistent 20 degrees. Um, a lot of the sharpening I do is with the Lansky like jig system, and just hoping this will make this easier, and hopefully it, whoever I'm getting given these making these knives for, um, it'll be consistent, and easy for to sharpen, resharpen in the future. That's the point of this. Um, so I had messed up the tip on this knife messing around in the shop, and so I just kind of reprofiled the tip a little bit here. But you can see that the sharpening jig seems to be working pretty good, about like I want it to, and um, I'm pretty happy with it. Um, Smooth out the curve a little bit here. You can see I'm just checking to make sure I don't get that blade too hot, and then grind on my little micro bevel, and seems to be working pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with that. So anyway, thanks for watching.